My daughter's on the floor and that's just what's happening right now. So you want to begin to stop the judgment and comparison and just drop into the noticing, like that third person perspective. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Ever wondered why, despite your best intentions, you sometimes fail to take action towards your parenting goals? In today's episode, we're exploring the perplexing gap between our aspirations and our actions. So I've been thinking about why sometimes I take action, why sometimes I don't take action. I've been thinking about you guys. When I'm talking to moms, one of the most frustrating things for them is when it seems like they're not having the results that they want, or they're taking the action that they're planning out in their head, but then it's not happening. So we all have dreams. We've all set these goals. We all have things that we want to do, but then how do we get ourselves to do them? And why don't we do the things we want to do? Do you guys have any guesses of why we don't do the things? Sometimes we're like, I want to do that thing, and then we don't do it. It really all comes down to the same answer, how we feel, right? We either are going towards a feeling or we're withdrawing from a feeling. And so we're having thoughts and there's feelings, and they're created by our beliefs about ourselves, about our kids, about our situation, but we can't control other people. We can't control the past. We can't control what we did yesterday. Done, locked and loaded. We can't control anything that happens out in the world beyond our influence, really beyond us. And those are just circumstances, just situations. And really, those are the only things that we can't control in our life. Other people and other things. Good news. The rest of the components in the STEER model, the thoughts we have, the beliefs we have, something, if we don't like it, we can process, we can identify, we can heal that. Our emotional reactions to something. Now, it might feel like we can't control it. And I'm for sure not saying that you should beat yourself up for having a certain reaction to something. No. Anytime something triggers us, like our kids yelling, or they're fighting, or there's a mess everywhere, all of those are just signs for us when we see the emotional response we're having and we get to the bottom of the beliefs that are behind it, and we look at the actions we're taking. We're looking at all of that from this awareness perspective, using the principles of Connect Method parenting. And we're like, okay, here's what's happening now. This is what's happening. That's it. And what can I do? What's there? Maybe there's some emotional release we need to go into, right? To heal it. Maybe just the awareness. There was something that happened this weekend that really was triggering for me. And as I talked it through and thought it through, the awareness just started to release the ideas I had of what that meant. When I'm like, oh, that's what my brain thinks it means when someone does that. I'll tell you what was happening. I was speaking into a local group that I've been friends with them for a long time. And there was someone in the audience that just kept talking a lot. And I really like talking, but something about it just triggered something, and it caused me to be like, maybe there's something I'm missing, or maybe I should just have her come speak or whatever. And it was so fascinating because it just opened up my awareness to be like, oh, there's something there. There's something there to look at. There's something there to heal. And the same thing with my kids, right? Brains want to go to self-doubt. I don't know what's happening. Maybe I should just give up. Maybe I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Self-doubt is part of being a human. And it's part of being a human. We think it shouldn't be there, but it's part of being a human. It's just there to teach me. So we're having all these things, and yes, we can control them as we just notice them, as we go through the healing journey, as we become more emotionally mature. We do have control. That's really good news that we have control, but let's not use it as ammunition against ourselves. We shouldn't be anywhere other than where we are right now, with the triggers we have, with the responses we have, with the emotions that are coming up. Those things outside of us can't control our lives. And if our brain thinks they can, or that they're causing self-doubt, we notice them, right? When we look at the model, when we look at the STEER model, it includes our thoughts, our feelings, the emotions, the actions, the results. All of those things are within our control when we get into the higher thinking, when we calm our nervous system down, and we often forget that. So we think that everything is either in our control or nothing is in our control. And it's never that way. It's always that there's situations, there's our kids crying, there's the messy bedroom, there's the husband that's cranky from work, there's our boss that might say something, or the weather, or we could go on and right. We don't have necessarily control over those. We just have control over how we perceive them. The situations includes other people, and other people, including our kids, aren't in our control, right? We think, oh, I'll feel better when they change, but it's I'll feel better when I perceive the situation differently. When we forget this and we don't remember that we do have power, then we don't take action because we don't think we have anything that's worth doing. We're responding to the thoughts that we aren't even aware of. And then we just move into our default programming. So that's one of the things that's going to be very confronting is you're going to make these goals and you're going to want to make progress on them. And sometimes you're going to do something about it. Sometimes you're going to go into default mode about it. And how we process that, what we do about that, what we make that either action, inaction, the results that are happening, what we make that mean will make the difference between you being able to step fully into creating what you want in your life versus staying where we are. So it's why this matters. It matters because our beliefs, the way we perceive, the way we process the children's behavior, if we don't see it as information, if we see the emotional meltdown as this big problem, which is our default, most of our default beliefs, right? If we think we need to fix them. And when I was talking, one of the things that came up this weekend when I was speaking to these women was they're like, what if they're being, and they were like, all the scenarios, what if this, what if that, there's all these exceptions in our head that if they do this, then I have to, right? And they're like, really, will it work? If I really just believe in their goodness and I don't correct them, it will, you guys, 100%. And it matters because this realization that, hey, all of these situations outside of me, my kids, specifically, we'll stick with the kids right now, with the kids, it's eliciting an emotional response in me, which is caused by some belief I have, either subconscious or conscious, right? And that's what I want to continue to dig into, because when we talk theory, when we talk information, you guys are all like, yeah, that's totally right. I get that this is information, that the behavior is information. I understand that they need to have this emotional experience, but yet it's still really triggering for me and feels awful, right? And so my body wants to make that mean something. Usually we're pulling away from the negative ones, we're leaning into the positive ones, we're feeling guilty and shame and frustration and disappointment. So everything we do in our lives is a result of wanting to feel a certain way. And like I said, just really good information to know. So if your feelings are created by the beliefs we have, right, then everything we do in our life, we do it in order to feel better. And wouldn't it be important to know that what you're thinking is what's creating that, right? Absolutely. The problem is we don't get taught this. So we're talking about it right now because I want you to be able to feel like you can create whatever you want. Like you have the tools to feel and heal that nervous system, to process a situation that's happening in front of you, and to really change those neural pathways. I want you to think about something that's happened that's caused some emotional, right, there inside of you. And I want you to keep that in your mind. And we're going to do a little bit of a guided process where we're going to be thinking about it, where we're going to take some time and get present. Because here is what I find a lot of the time is when we're having the emotional reflexive response, that reactionary response, is because we're not present right in this moment. We're not present. Our mind is off making meaning about how it's going to ruin their lives or ruin our lives, or this is terrible, it's ruined our evening. And our bodies, right? Your body is here feeling this feeling and running away with that feeling. They're not here. We're not present in that moment. And this is everything, is to learn how to start practicing being present. It's the practice of being present in this moment. If we can be just right here in this moment, not lost in the past, not thinking too much about the future, right? Because the past is when we're digging up all of the evidence of how they never clean their room, or they never choose me over their dad, or my teenager never comes in at curfew, right? Or our brains say never, but that's not usually the case. But we collect all the evidence. So it feels like they're always rude. And we're thinking about all this stuff in the past. And then our brain goes to the future. And because of all that past, because of what they did right now, but we're not really here in this moment. We're focusing on the past. And then we jump way into the future because of them being a liar or not tidy with their room, or being disrespectful at school. They're going to become this. And that means I am a bad parent. We won't have a relationship. And we pull up the baggage from the past for ourselves. And then we create this future for ourselves. And what I'm saying is that is what causes so much of our problems, is not just being right here. Our brain is wanting to go a million miles a minute, and it doesn't want to be right here in this moment, because a lot of times it feels very uncomfortable. I was recently thinking about this experience I had with my family. It's been 8 years. It's been a long time. And it was funny because I was bringing it up to my younger kids. It's been 8 years. So they're 8 years older. And I was like, do you remember that train ride? And they're like, oh my gosh, I remember that train ride. It was so miserable. And what had happened is we were on this mountain and we had ridden up on the lift. So super beautiful. We were at the top of this mountain. It was awesome. And then my husband did this mountain biking thing down with my oldest son. And I had didn't have all the kids with us. We just had 4 of the kids with us. So I had 3 other kids, and we wanted to go on this hike and then take the lift back down, the gondola back down from the other side of the mountain, which was not a big deal. But when we got to the other side of the mountain, they had a rock slide, and we couldn't take the gondola down, and we had to take the 2-hour train ride around the mountain to get back to where we were supposed to be. And at first I was like, that'll be fine, right? That's going to be an adventure. That'll be great, instead of the 15-minute gondola ride, because we were not very far from where we needed to be. We just didn't have a way to get back because of the way the mountains and the train. So we took this train ride, and what happened is that because of the landslide, nobody could go any other direction. Everybody had to take the train ride, and they just started packing people in, to the point where you couldn't move. People were getting sick and throwing up, and it was stinky. And I had these kids with me, and I was trying to make sure nobody stole them. And I wasn't even looking outside at the beautiful scenery. I didn't get to enjoy any of it because my brain was so focused on all the things that weren't working in the moment. So it was totally not present. And I think back and I'm like, I got to go on this 2-hour train ride in the most beautiful scenery ever, and I missed all of it. And I was miserable the whole time because of all the things I was thinking about, how it shouldn't have been this way. I regretted, I was in the past thinking I shouldn't have done this. I should have just gone down the other path. Shouldn't have taken the hike. We should have just all things that should have, could have, would have, right, happened. Wasn't present. And then I was thinking about the future. Like, when I get back, I'm going to do this, and I wish this wasn't happening. And when I get back, all the things for the future. We're going to make sure the kids are okay. We're going to go eat this dinner. I'm going to need a nap. I'm going to have to shower because it stinks so bad in here, and I'm so sweaty. It was really hot. And I missed out on the whole experience because my body was rejecting the experience. I wasn't managing my brain. I wasn't like, you know what, this is okay. Let me just feel this. And I think that's sometimes really similar to how we are with the kids, right? Maybe a decision we made got us into this place, or maybe it wasn't even us. We just landed in this place, and our children are emotionally triggered for some reason, or having a tantrum, or doing something that, whatever it is, it's causing us to feel a lot of discomfort and feeling uncomfortable. And we have all the shoulda, woulda, coulda thoughts, and we're thinking about the future, right? And we're not here in this moment because we've convinced ourselves that we aren't supposed to feel this way. Now, if I had just decided, hey, I'm just supposed to feel uncomfortable on the train right now, and I can feel uncomfortable, and I can feel hot and sweaty, and this can be disappointing, and I can be a little bit frustrated, and I can look out the window and appreciate this amazing mountain scenery. It would have been a totally different experience. I would have been able to work through the emotions and had a different reaction to the people around me and to my kids, because I would have just been present. That's the power of being present. It's actually what I did not do that day. But one of the events in my life, one of those big moments where your brain remembers every detail of it. And I realize now how far I went from being present. So hopefully you have in your mind one of your essentials that's causing you to maybe feel something, or has caused you to feel something because it hasn't been working the way you want to, and that's why you're wanting to shift it. Or you have in your mind a situation that it has come up, that may be something that happened last night with a child, and you're like, duh, and you're not being as present with that, or you weren't as present with that. And I want you to just notice that from a place of complete love and compassion. Nothing has gone wrong. There was nothing wrong that I went on the train ride. There's nothing wrong when my daughter cries for 45 minutes because she wrecked her scooter, because she doesn't want to do yard work, or because she doesn't want to fold her clothes, or because dinner isn't what she wanted. There's nothing wrong with that. It just is. And if we can just practice, this is what's happening, instead of saying this shouldn't be happening, it's this is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. I sometimes just say that over and over again. This is what's happening. Yep, this is what's happening. It's an acceptance. I do have control over accepting or rejecting or fighting against what's happening. My daughter's throwing a fit. This is what's happening right now. My kids are fighting in the back. Whatever it is, this is what's happening. And if you want to take it to the next level and see if it works, this is what's happening. And it's okay. I can deal with this. I'm capable of figuring this out. I can just feel this way. Part of me can feel frustrated, and part of me can feel compassionate, right? I can understand, and I can totally be a little bit irritated, right? I can hold these contrasting emotions. I think about it like this, and it's almost like a weight. I'm like, I'm holding them both, right? That's part of what comes online with our prefrontal cortex. That higher thinking is our ability to balance multiple emotions. And sometimes I feel like I'm wearing a couple purses, different emotions, and I'm just noticing they're there. I'm like, yeah, this is what's happening. I'm feeling really frustrated right now. This is what's happening. I'm feeling really triggered. This is my thought right now. Yep, this is what's coming up. And I'm just noticing. So I want you to think back to that situation, that if you're thinking about your essential, like maybe something related to it, scenario when it didn't go well, or maybe when it has gone well. And can we get into the noticing, this is what's happening, right? So our thoughts in our minds are just sentences, but they are what create our feelings. So when I hijack my default rhythm, right? This shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening, to this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And I love to add that it's okay. This is what's happening. It's okay. We're all doing the best. And I have these practice beliefs, right? That take a while, maybe. I'm learning. This is what I started with, right? I'm learning to just notice that this is what's happening, or I'm practicing, or I'm becoming someone who can just see that, fill in the blank, right? That this is what's happening, right? That my daughter's on the floor and that's just what's happening right now. So you want to begin to stop the judgment and comparison and just drop into the noticing, like that third person perspective, right? Because our feelings are what drive our action. So when I go into this is what's happening, you tell me, what is the emotion if you were able to drop into that place? Like, this is what's happening. They're throwing a fit. When I go into this is what's happening, it's okay. Sometimes I just say, oh, this is my thought. So I'll say what's happening in my brain, what's happening in my child's brain, what's happening maybe in my husband's brain. And I'm like, this is just what's happening right now. This is what's happening. Acceptance is one of the emotions, I would say. Curiosity, awareness. It's like a pause and a slowing down. So there's this process I call SOS. I'd call it different things, but we're going to call it SOS today. There's different ways I say it. So SOS is slow down. This is when I'm feeling like I'm just frantic, right? S is for slow down and just see what's happening. Slow down. This is what's happening. I'm going to slow my brain down because we have to slow and interrupt the pattern. Now, sometimes I slow down very slowly and I don't actually slow my brain down until after it's happened. But eventually when I'm able to slow my brain down enough to interrupt, I'm like, oh, that's what happened an hour ago. Okay. Let me just look at that. Let me just see that. At first, you're for sure not going to slow down in the moment. You might even have a little bit of, ooh, this is what's happening. And you just keep going. Totally have done that like 1,000 times. And wherever you interrupt, awesome. Even if it's 2 days later, a week later, you jump on a call and you're like, Andy, this is what was happening. And I see it now. Or maybe you jump on the call and you still aren't even able to see it. And you're like, this is what's happening. And I'm so mad. And we can start to slow our brains down. So this is what's happening. And we're slowing our brains down to actually see if we can pause the default pattern, pause the model, pause that steer model. And we've done the work now, the process of doing the models, the unintentional and the intentional models for your essentials. That is a process of slowing down. And I'm inspecting this and I'm looking at it. And I'm seeing like, oh, I can see now when I'm not so triggered how that's flowing and what my beliefs are and what my thoughts are. And I can start to see what I want to create. That's a slowing down process. So we're slowing down and then we're staying, I call it on the dot, but we're staying there and long enough to actually be present and to feel it. And whether it's in the moment or 2 or 3 days later or an hour later, doesn't matter. We're staying there long enough to say, okay, let me unpack that a little bit more. Let me see if I can understand that a little bit more. So the slowing down is getting us to pattern interrupt. And then the on the dot is I'm staying on the dot. I'm just staying here, even though it feels so uncomfortable. I'm just realizing it's just my perception of this that's making me uncomfortable. It's just my fears, my worries that maybe I'm going to screw my kids up. Maybe I'm letting them down, or maybe I'm a hot mess, whatever it is. I'm staying here and I'm staying on the dot. And I'm like, okay, this actually is super fantastic that I can control this. And then after we've unpacked it, you've unveiled the problem and you understand it, you think, what's the thought behind the thought? My first thought is they shouldn't be doing it. And then we're doing the work. A lot of that comes up with thought downloads. A lot of it comes up with the steer model. When you start creating it, you start understanding more, and then you stay with it. So this is the process of taking massive action. We slow down, and there's a couple different things we can do to slow down. Maybe you slow down, you get present with the problem by taking a walk, by listening to music, by like jumping on a call here and talking about it, by posting something. We're slowing down. I used to just lay flat on the ground when I would finally realize, oh, okay, I'm slowing down. I'm stopping. Staying on the dot. I'm like going to unveil it and unpack it. I'm going to do my thought downloads. I'm going to reach out if I need help. I'm going to be kind and gentle with myself, do some steer models, and then we're going to stay with it. Now, this is where we are in this cycle, slowing down, staying on the dot with the problem. So I made you focus on 1 to 3 things, not 20 things. We're going to just like narrow it down, constrain, because your brain's going to want to be fixing everything. But when we do that, we get nothing fixed. No progress is made. So we're staying focused on these issues. And then we want to change it. So then we're going to stay with it and we're going to navigate it in the real world. And this is when sometimes we're like, this feels terrible. And that's why I started the call with saying, okay, it's our thoughts that are creating, it's our perception, it's our beliefs, subconscious or conscious, that's causing us to feel a certain way that's driving our actions. And you've heard me say this 1,000 times, but you're going to hear me say it 1,000 more because we have the awareness and then we have to embody it, integrate it, and become someone who really sees the world through this way. And it takes experiences, not just talking, but like real life experiences with your kids, with your life. So the next part to create massive action so that you can create this amazing result for yourself and then pick up and up level it to the next level. The first level might just be, I'm really aware of the problem and I see my beliefs. I've unpacked it, where that might be as far as it gets. I've interrupted myself a couple of times 2 hours later. That would be huge progress for me. That was huge progress at first, is just getting really in the belief, okay, punishments aren't going to work. I keep thinking they are, and I keep slipping back into it, but I'm really solid now after this amount of time that they're not. So we're going to create a vision now. So slow down, get present to the problem, doing the steer models, just sitting in it, not retreating, staying on the dot, unpacking and unveiling the problem so you can understand it even more, creating the vision. So it starts in our mind. So we've seen it now, we've gotten present to it, we've slowed down, we've constrained our brain instead of getting distracted to this other problem. We're like, okay, I want to finish this one through. And now we're going to create the vision. It starts in our mind with the awareness, but now we've got to drop it into our body. So then we start to visualize it. What am I going to do now? And I used to be a competitive gymnast, and we used visualization all of the time. I've read so many studies about it over the last decade to even more solidify my confidence in it. But there's something that happens when we mentally imagine what we want to do the next time that happens, right? Our brains are like, don't imagine that, it's going to make it happen again. Or who wants to think about that terrible thing, right? But if your child is melting down every bedtime, or your teenager is being a little bit pushy and a little bit mouthy when they leave to go out with friends at night, then there's so much power if we just stay on that, stay on the dot about it, and you think about it and you go into it. We have to really be onto our bodies because it's going to fight us tooth and nail because it feels icky. Sometimes our bodies at least think it feels icky when we go there because it's like during the moment we feel terrible. I hate the way it feels. I just want my life to be perfect and happy and everyone to get along. But it's like, hey, let's go there, step all the way into it, and really imagine. I would imagine my tumbling passes and my floor, all the floor routine dance moves and the beam and the bars. And I would just visualize it. And what they found in studies is our brain, our body, the way we make reality for ourselves, there's very little difference between what we imagine and what we do actually in the real world. There is a little bit of a difference. It's not the same, but there's so many studies that show incredible progress by somebody just imagining that their arm is getting stronger. They put these people in casts. This is one I think is just really fascinating. They put people in casts. They didn't have a broken arm, but they put people in casts. And the first group, they just put them in a cast and said, we'll see you in, I don't know, a month or whatever it was. The second group of people, they said, okay, we're going to put you in a cast. I want you every day to spend, I can't remember the amount of time, but so much time imagining yourself exercising and that muscle getting stronger that's in a cast. And then the third group of people, they didn't put in cast. They just told them to do a certain amount of exercises equal to the time that the people were imagining the exercises. And the people with the cast did nothing. Their muscles went down in strength a certain percentage. And the people who had the cast on but thought about it, they actually didn't lose as much muscle mass. And the people who exercised obviously was more because they were physically moving it. But the difference between the people who had the cast and did nothing and had the cast and just visualized it, literally did not move their arm, it was pretty significant. I'll have to find the actual data. I wasn't planning on citing that for you guys today, but it was incredible. And there's so many other studies that just show the power of just our brain thinking and believing that something's possible, going through it. With athletes, they do it all of the time and it's huge. So it starts in our mind, can be a little bit body, but mostly in our head. And then we're going to have to drop it into our nervous system, into our body. And so we start to ask ourselves, okay, what am I going to do the next time? Fill in. I want you to think about the thing that you've been thinking about, the goal that you have set for your essentials, or that thing that just happened last week that happens every night. So what are you going to do the next time that happens? And I want you to visualize the person who does the new thing, that version of you. What are they doing? What are they choosing to do instead? Okay. So we're visualizing it. Okay. I can see it. This is the result I would create. Make sure it's about you, not about your kids, fixing your kids right now. The kids will fix themselves once we just love them and show up more loving towards them. So put the result you want to create for yourself. Hey, they had a meltdown at bedtime. My child has a meltdown and I chose to just stay connected and not get triggered. And so in order to do that, I have to prepare by eating really well that day and making sure I got enough sleep and getting myself ready. An hour before bedtime happens when I know they get that meltdown stage, all the things that you would have to do. And then I'd have to be feeling determined maybe. And then my thought might be, I'm learning how to not melt down with my child when they melt down at night. And the situation would be the meltdown at bedtime, if that was your scenario. So just to give you an idea. So we visualize it, we conceptualize it also in the model, and then we continue to really imagine, almost like you're got a part in a play. And they talk about actors and actresses that get parts in plays or movies or whatever, and how they can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, if anybody knows kind of what I'm talking about, but they just really go to this place where they're embodying the emotions ahead of time. And they're like, this character has these weaknesses and these strengths and these tendencies and this disposition. And they're like really believing and practicing becoming that person, that part. So I want you to do the same thing, and you can write it all out. What would that version of me be like? You're playing a part, like you're writing the description and you're creating the possibilities of it. And we're visualizing it. We're going to close our eyes and visualize it. We're going to open our eyes and visualize it by doing the model. And we're really visualizing that person, that version of ourselves. And then we have to start taking action. So this is all within the navigating part, which really is a repeat. We're like going through the SOS multiple times, hundreds of times a day, maybe sometimes. I'm reminding myself of who I was going to be, who I'm going to be tonight at bedtime. And then I take action. So I'm present and I understand. And now I'm going to do the new thing. Let me say it again. I'm present because we've unpacked the problem, right? We've interrupted it. We've slowed down, and I'm aware of what I want to do. I've mentally prepared. I've viscerally prepared myself, and I know what I want to be. If we can sit and imagine our daughter melting down and us walking into the room and being in this new place and responding in this new way and believing this new thing about them and about us, right? Our body's almost like, oh, we've done that once. The more we visualize it, the more we begin to believe that it's possible. So we choose something to work on. We commit to not jumping out of it, staying present, right? You're practicing that ahead of time. And then in the moment, you're staying present. You're like, okay, this is what I'm planning to do today. I'm going to do this thing. I'm staying present. And then we curate or start collecting all the beliefs ahead of time. We practice the beliefs in the real time, and we're creating the habits. We're creating the cue cards so you can step into the part, right? You're deciding what kind of actions you would take. You're creating the vision. Like I said, that all is creating more evidence. You've written out the steer models, right? Anything to help make it easier for you to be successful. You're creating that, you're curating that, you're collecting that, you're practicing that, right? And then we continue finding that calm center that you can come back to no matter what the emotional waves or the behavioral waves that are happening outside of you. So this is a way that we can think about the process of actually taking this goal. And I've asked you to do the steer models, right? But now I'm saying, how do we take more consistent action? And even if that action is just us starting to visualize it, that is really powerful. Taking that model and really creating that awareness, that possibility in our minds ahead of time. So this is the SOS again. I'll just repeat it really quick. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a guided process with you about just staying present, right? So we slow down. That's the S part, the first S, slow down, get present to the problem. Whenever that happens, right? We're just trying to slow and interrupt. And then we stay on the dot, we unpack it. If you slow down in the moment, you're like, oh, this is the problem. I see it. And you're like, this is what's happening, right? Staying on the dot would just be, how do I stay in this moment with my child? What have I practiced? What have I visualized? Pull out the cue card if you need to. I did that a lot. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm learning to believe this is just information. I'm learning not to blame them. I'm learning not to blame me. I'm learning to be compassionate. So we're staying on the dot. And then we stay with it and we execute what we've planned on. So there's the real-time SOS, right? Slow down, stay on the dot, stay here, stay in this moment, right? Your brain's going to want to go everywhere else, back and forward, messes in the other room, right? Whatever. And then we stay and navigate it. Stay. So slow down, on the dot for stay. So we can do that in the moment, or we can do it after the fact. And there's power in doing both, especially at first. Really powerful to do both. So that's my challenge for you this week. Love you all. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for listening, you all. If you are ready to learn more about Connect Method Parenting, if you've been listening to the podcast and you think, ooh, I'd love to be able to implement this in my life and with my parenting more, then check out Pivot. It's my 8-week program where we deep dive into learning and implementing Connect Method Parenting so that you can take this information and transform your parenting journey. Head over to connectmethodparenting.com to find out when the next group starts.